Welcome to your favorite bookish podcast, Fully Booked and Caffeinated. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Heather.
And today we will be discussing and reviewing Britney Spears' much talked about memoir, The Woman in Me. As usual, let's talk about our fuel for this discussion to really get us in the zone. Pun intended. There will be more of those. This is a trigger warning ahead of time. There will be more puns. Anyway, what are you drinking, Heather?
I needed the caffeine for this episode, so I went to Starbucks and got a white chocolate mocha. And they were out of oat milk, which made me sad. And he was like, "Oh, do you want almond or soy milk?" And I was like, "No, I just like the taste of oat milk. I'll just take regular milk."
He's like, "Wait, you don't want a fake milk then?"
No, I just like how it tastes with oat milk, but 2%'s fine.
They have so many milk options.
Yeah, but they were out of oat, and I was like, that's sad. Also, Eric got the spicy pineapple refresher. Did you see that they now have spicy refreshers?
No.
Yeah, it's like their new drink of the month or whatever. So all the refreshers, so the strawberry, the dragon fruit, and the pineapple can all be spicy now.
Okay, hear me out. That and add tequila and make a little spicy marg.
Yeah, you totally could do that. Yeah.
Wow, wish I had one of those. I got Starbucks this morning, my normal latte, and I did it in preparation for this episode because Britney Spears is the queen of Starbucks, and I feel as though there are more pictures of Britney with Starbucks in her hand than I have pictures of myself in all of history. I do remember the iconic time when she gave money to a paparazzo and had him go inside Starbucks and get her coffee for her because she didn't want to get out of the car. And this was like before Starbucks in LA had drive-thrus, I guess.
I didn't even know that she was that big of a fan of Starbucks.
Oh yeah. If you just Google like Britney paparazzi photos, it's kind of a tie between her and the Olsen twins as to who has more Starbucks cups.
Well, then I'm glad that I went to Starbucks this afternoon.
It's appropriate.
It is.
Okay, so let's get into it. Here's a little bit of our author background. We're going to talk a little bit about Britney Jean Spears, aka the Princess of Pop. So she's born in 1981 in the South, and we'll talk about her early life a little bit later, but I just wanted to, at the top, talk about some of her accomplishments because they're important to think about, especially in light of this memoir. So she has 1 Grammy, 15 Guinness World Records, 6 MTV Video Music Awards, 7 Billboard Music Awards, the Radio Disney Icon Award, the GLAAD's Vanguard Award, a star on the Walk of Fame. She's also marked as the best-selling teenage artist of all time. Before she turned 20, she had sold over 37 million albums worldwide. And as of 2023, she has sold over 150 million records worldwide, making her one of the best-selling music artists of all time. She's also recognized as the best-selling female albums artist of the 2000s and the 5th best-selling overall. And I could honestly go on and on, but the point is that, yes, Britney was this pop princess in the 2000s. She's continued to work. She's continued to put out best-selling albums, sold out tours. She's had a very successful and a very long career. And in light of some of the horrible things that we're going to discuss in this memoir, this is absolutely baffling.
I agree.
It's just like the accomplishments are so many that it's hard to think of it as the same person.
I agree. I actually really agree with that because the trajectory of her life, you wouldn't think that was her success.
Exactly. You wouldn't think that it was such long success as opposed to just like the early 2000s. So we talked about how during this time you were more of a Jessica Simpson girly when you were younger, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So why Jessica Simpson over Britney Spears?
I don't know. I think I thought she was the prettiest.
Okay.
And I think I really liked, I can't remember what is the song called? She's talks about the white I have a t-shirt on, never felt so beautiful.
Well, I forget what it's called. Know what you're talking about.
But that was I really liked that song at the time.
Yeah, I think they had similar trajectories because they had these high profile relationships, but Jessica Simpson was obviously not as roasted in the media as Britney was, but she also wasn't as successful. So that is part of it also. Not that she wasn't successful, but just like comparatively.
I mean, Britney was, out of the three of them, including Christina Aguilera, Britney was obviously the most successful and the most popular out of the three. I didn't dislike her. I liked all three of them, but my preference at that time was just Jessica Simpson.
Yeah. So obviously, I was a Britney girly from the very start. I remember her as like such a formative and important part of my childhood. I've seen her in concert probably 4 or 5 times. And this was like all during her earlier years. Also, like my sister is older than I am. So even though I was slightly younger for Britney's fan base, we kind of were both into her and bonded over that. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, it was just a very big part of my childhood. I'm going to try and stay on track with the memoir as much as possible, except to provide context where necessary. But truly, Britney Spears is my Roman Empire. So this is a lot for me. So, The Woman in Me was released in October of 2023, and it was truly a cultural moment, even for people who weren't fans of Britney. Everyone knows of her, and everyone knows of the Free Britney movement. So the fact that we are going to get Britney's take in her own words was a very big deal.
Yeah.
And it's reported that she had a ghostwriter helping her with this writing, which makes sense because I believe someone needed to keep Britney on track. And we kind of see that even throughout the memoir. Within the first week, this book sold 1.1 million copies in the US, and it's now estimated to have sold over 3 million copies worldwide.
I wonder what that puts her in like if you were to chart like memoirs where she falls, because I feel like she's probably one of the best-selling ones.
I was thinking that too, and I didn't look up like comparatively. Yeah. I think it also it's hard because the way we consume media is different even now from like 5 years ago. So it's like, I mean, we both listened to the audiobook of this. It's included on Spotify if you have Spotify Premium. So like it's more accessible now also. You know what I mean?
I agree.
All right, so here's the Goodreads summary. In June 2021, the whole world was listening as Britney Spears spoke in open court. The impact of sharing her voice, her truth, was undeniable, and it changed the course of her life and the lives of countless others. The Woman in Me reveals for the first time her incredible journey and the strength at the core of one of the greatest performers in pop music history. Written with remarkable candor and humor, Spears' groundbreaking book illuminates the enduring power of music and love, and the importance of a woman telling her own story on her own terms at last. And I think that's exactly what people are expecting from it and exactly what people wanted from it.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. You stop me if there's anything you want to touch on that I glaze over or you want to dig into, because there's a lot. So I definitely skipped some things. Not much, because we're covering it. Okay, so her childhood. She starts in the way, way back machine. She has an alcoholic father. Her parents fought a lot because her father was an alcoholic. Her grandma, Jean, took her own life after losing a child and being sent to an asylum by her grandfather, who was a real piece of shit. And this is extreme foreshadowing here because she specifically mentions that in the asylum, they gave her grandmother lithium. And obviously, we come back to that later with Britney. So Britney had resentment towards her mother because she would fight with her father all the time. And to her, the best way to deal with her father was just to kind of ignore him, because at least when he was drunk, he was being quiet and sleeping or not really bothering them. Like, he wasn't an angry drunk. He wasn't violent. And so she definitely put the blame on her mother in these situations. And I don't know if she realized this in the moment, but as she's reflecting on it, she remembers getting mad at her mom because basically her mom was wasting her time because her dad was sick.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think a child understands that their alcoholic father is sick, but in hindsight, she does. So she's also very attached. She doesn't want to be alone. She was glued to her brother's side and then to her mother's as a kid. So already we're really seeing some like tumultuous stuff happening in her childhood. She says, I wanted to hide, but I also wanted to be seen. Both things can be true. And I think this is less about wanting to hide and more about wanting to hide so people would find her, because her brother got more attention. Her mother wasn't necessarily winning Mom of the Year awards. Like, she even says that you know, her parents paid more attention to her brother, and then her little sister came, and obviously they paid attention to her little sister. So she says it as like, kind of like, I wanted to be an introvert and an extrovert, but I think it was more than that. It was a kid wanting to get noticed by their parents.
Definitely.
And she talks about drinking alcohol as a very young teen, 12 or 13 years old, with her mom. And basically, that's the fond memories she has. That's the close relationship that she refers to. That's not normal bonding. And she doesn't really acknowledge in this book that her mom was doing anything wrong by doing this.
Well, it's crazy because parenting in the 90s and 80s is so different than it is now. So I feel like even though that's so not the correct way to raise your child, it was so common back then.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. And I don't think, I mean, obviously her mom wasn't doing it maliciously. And
no,
she was, you know what I mean?
Not.
But it's weird the way that she spoke about it.
Yeah.
And like, she could have said the exact same thing that you've said. Like, it was different back then. But instead, she's just like, we had such a close relationship when I was younger because we would just have our White Russians together and be driving around with like baby Jamie Lynn.
But then she's like, her mom's just drinking while driving. I was like, oh, okay, that's not great.
And then she's driving the car at 13 years old. Yeah. Why? Because your mom was too drunk. I don't know. It was all it was weird how she glazed over it. And I was just like, okay, we're in this.
Yeah.
So she also claims that she was a real rebel when she was a teenager. She was skipping school, having sex with a 17-year-old, drinking and smoking at 13 years old. She lost her virginity at 14. And I think it's really important that she says this because Justin Timberlake, we'll get to him, wanted so badly in the media to portray that he had taken Britney's virginity and her innocence and he was some playboy. And it seems like that wasn't really the case at all.
Yeah.
We also don't hear much about Miss Felicia, who she refers to as Miss Fee, but we do know that Miss Fee was basically her nanny turned assistant and was a huge part of her life up until the conservatorship really took hold. She was basically a stand-in mother and a supportive best friend through Britney's life. And I kind of wonder if the reason that she's so absent from this book is because Britney feels betrayed by her in some way, because she did do some documentaries and some of the media that Britney refers to later where she felt that people that she trusted spoke about her without giving her a heads up. So I wonder if that's why we don't hear about her too much, because it just seems like she was such a huge part of Britney's life, you know?
So you've seen her in documentaries?
Yeah, she did the New York Times documentary, which really started to expose the Free Britney movement and the sexualization of her when she was younger. It really hit on all of these cultural points.
Okay.
And so she did that documentary. She's interviewed in it and basically says I lost touch with her and I'm worried about her, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a possibility. So basically she's in and out of fame a little bit from the ages of 9 to 15, in and out of the Mickey Mouse Club. She name drops all these other successful people, which is just so crazy to me that they were all together in the Mickey Mouse Club.
Ryan Gosling, Carrie Russell, Christina Aguilera.
Of course, Christina Aguilera. And everything changes at age 16 because Baby One More Time comes out in 1998 and it's a hit single followed by a hit music video. And this is where it all starts. So this music video was a cultural shift because, yes, these pop princesses were starting to crop up, but Britney had this mature voice and this mature image, and they did this really crazy thing of balancing her sexy schoolgirl image, that's for the older men to gawk at, with her innocence, which was for the younger girls to aspire to and relate to. And I mean, she could do it all. She was dancing, she was singing, she was beautiful. And from her memoir, we find out that she actually had a big hand in that music video. She had some really great creative ideas that they ended up using. And I was really surprised reading that, just at how much they honored her ideas, because you wouldn't think that they would. You know what
No,
I
and I
mean?
love that was like, I love that the music video was basically her whole idea, because they said they wanted to do like kind of like a, what was it, like a space thing or like a,
Yeah, an outer space
yeah, which
something.
I'm like, that makes no sense. I feel like her
Hmm.
video perfectly captured, like her schoolgirl idea perfectly captured like the innocence of the song, but also like the, you know, what she would become later kind of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it even would have affected her career if that
I
video was
agree.
not exactly what it was.
Because like I can pinpoint like everything from that video, and
Hmm.
I haven't seen it in years, but I remember it so well. I remember the album cover, like it's
Hmm.
without even like seeing whatever, looking it up in a while, because it was just so iconic.
Yeah. Yeah, like the outfits I can picture perfectly,
The
like
pink little
all of it. The
the
little pink
hair, the
fluffs.
pumps, yeah.
And then she's got like the little jock outfit,
Mm-hmm.
crop top when they're in the gymnasium.
The
But yeah,
gymnasium.
this is, I mean, it's iconic. So Britney starts touring with NSYNC as their opener, and she keeps this friendship going with none other than Justin Timberlake. And as I said, don't worry, we'll get to him. But first, let's talk about Crossroads, which came out in 2002, a classic film, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell me your thoughts of the what will go down as a true classic in history, the film
I have
Crossroads.
not seen it in a very long time, so I don't remember it that well, but I remember that it was her, and I believe Zoe Saldana
Hmm.
and the other actress whose name I can't
And
remember.
Taryn
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But then I found out recently that Shonda Rhimes wrote it. And I
Yep.
was like, holy shit. Because
Hmm.
she's amazing. She does
Hmm.
Bridgerton, and she did obviously
Hmm.
Grey's Anatomy. I mean, everyone knows what she did, Scandal and everything. And I'm like, she did Crossroads. And I'm like, now I need to
This
rewatch
is
it.
where she started, baby. I mean, at some point, I'm gonna say maybe don't rewatch it because your memory, although
Yeah.
vague, is better than the actual movie. But it doesn't matter. It's like Spice World. Like,
Mm-hmm.
nah, Spice World on the rewatch is good. But
Oh,
anyway,
man.
it's funny because at the time, they said the character Lucy was loosely based on Britney. And I feel like at the time, we all believed that. We thought she was this sweet, innocent, virginal Southern girl with this amazing gift. But from what Britney explains, that wasn't her at all. Like,
No.
she was a lot more precocious. She had to grow up a lot faster than we give her credit for. And she felt like she was playing a character. She said that she was actually method acting in order to get
Yeah.
into Lucy's brain. And for the record, I'm using the word virginal because that's the way they refer to it, not because virginity matters. You know what I mean? All right. Now let's talk about the first villain in our story. And there are plenty.
There are
But
plenty.
the first is Justin Timberlake. And before I go into how horrible he was, let's just acknowledge that he also was very young. He was experiencing fame in a mind-blowing way. And the way that he treated Britney is very much a product of our society and how our society treated young women at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I am by no means excusing his behavior, but it does influence and impact how we see it today. So Justin gets dragged in this book. Let me list the ways, because there are many. So Justin's cheating on her the whole time, and she knows
Shocker.
about it and just looks the other way because she's so in love with him. Brittany gets pregnant and is happy because she's going to be together with Justin forever. But Justin doesn't want the baby, which, like, understandable. They are very young. They're at the
Mm-hmm.
very beginning of their careers. I get it. But they, of course, couldn't let anyone find out about this, couldn't destroy their image. So she does what she describes as an at-home abortion. She takes abortion medication, and she describes the immense pain that she was in, how scared she was, how horrible it was, how she was just basically screaming and crying on the bathroom floor, and they still wouldn't take her to the hospital. They wouldn't do anything until Justin does something truly horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks that music will help her. So he comes into the bathroom where she's lying on the floor in complete agony, and he starts strumming on his guitar. Bruh. Like, you know that guy at the party who brings his guitar?
Yeah.
And you're like, stop.
Mm-hmm.
This is like bringing a guitar to a funeral and being like, stop.
Honestly.
Like, what the fuck?
And the fact that nobody would allow her to get medical help or assistance is mind-boggling to me, because she was so young. And to
She
go
could
through
have
that,
died.
and to go through that at so young, and to have this asshole of a boyfriend who basically made her get the abortion, because she would have kept the baby 110%. It's just insane.
And like, they weren't even, because she said Justin and Miss Fee were there, but they weren't even there with her. Like, she was in the bathroom by herself.
Yeah.
Until he comes in and he's like, "You doing okay? Can I help? Can I play my guitar?" Like, no. So then Justin breaks up with Britney via text, which really feels early for the times, and starts insinuating that the reason they broke up was because she was unfaithful. He was getting ready to take off on his solo career, and Britney specifically remembers him pulling away when he was recording his album Justified. And later, she realizes that he was using her as ammunition for this album. Of course, people want to listen to these heartfelt songs about the most iconic pop star breaking his heart. I mean, it's a genius marketing strategy. It's like when a new Taylor Swift album comes out and I'm like, I might have to break up with Eric for a week so that I can be really sad and relate to this music. So it's like that, but worse.
Yeah.
He also came out and said that he took her virginity, which we now know wasn't true, and was just a ploy to switch his fan base from these adoring boy band loving girls to maybe a more masculine or even a more balanced fan base. All of this was just so calculated and so brilliant. And I'm saying brilliant in like not a positive way, but it did exactly what he wanted it to do. And in true Britney fashion, I love that in her memoir, she spins this and says that she was happy when Justin started discussing her sexuality because finally she could stop pretending that she was this innocent little girl and she could be seen as a sexual being. So like, just really looking on the bright side. She's good at that in this memoir.
Which is
and then we get the
amazing in itself, because the shit that she's been through, it's to have a positive spin on all these negative situations is I applaud her.
Yeah, she's a better person than me, that's for fucking sure. Because my memoir would have a lot of the F word in it. You know what I'm saying? Actually, she said it a little bit, but
not very often.
So then we get the iconic Diane Sawyer interview, which to this day makes me sick to my stomach, especially on the rewatch, where she places all the blame on Britney, begs her to tell what she possibly could have done, and how could she possibly have broken poor JT's heart. It's so uncomfortable, and Britney is dealing with her first real heartbreak amid the media scrutiny. Like, I truly cannot imagine. And it's clear from this memoir that Britney was severely affected by that breakup, and she is still affected by it to this day. Why do you think that she was so affected by it? Like, it's obviously more than just she had her heart broken.
No, I think because judging from how she's grown up, I think that she sought that fairy tale life. And let's be real, if the two biggest pop stars come together, that's like a fairy tale story in itself. So her dream is to be with him forever and to start like this music family and to live happily ever after. And then that kind of got ripped away from her. And now her image is being tarnished when she did nothing wrong. Realistically, it was all him. And of course, at that point in time, men were more believed than women. It was definitely a male heavy in the industry. So it just, she was set up to fail, realistically. And that wasn't fair to her. So, and I think that this is really what started her depression, like her depressive episodes.
And the fact that he was able to get in front of it, especially as a male, but also like you're not changing the media's mind, because then everything that she says after that is going to be her making things up to make herself look better, or her trying to spin it, or et cetera, et cetera.
I know. And she has such a big heart. Like, you can tell she falls easily. So it's just, it sucks for her. It really does.
I think also to your point, like she really trusted Justin and she loved his family and she was really close with his family and they have this perfect little life. And not only was that ripped away, but then she got this backlash when she knew that she'd done nothing wrong. I don't even know how you can go through that grieving process with the whole world watching. So I don't think she ever did grieve that loss of
Uh-uh.
relationship, that loss of her perceived innocence, like all of these things. I mean, imagine like you're this age and you go through this horrible breakup and then add being famous on top of it.
No, because you're still have your adolescent brain at that time. So you haven't really experienced life yet. And in this scenario, she's aging herself. What she's going through, she shouldn't be going through at her age. Like, this is shit you deal with down the line. She shouldn't have to deal with this public heartbreak that wasn't her fault. So she gets all this blame placed on her for something that wasn't on her at all. She was the faithful one. He was the one that was screwing around and everything. So it's just, it is what it is at this point. Nothing you can do about now.
Yeah. But I was shocked at how much it still really, really affects her. Not shocked, but just like it was very vulnerable of her to talk about it the way that she did.
Yeah, and it was definitely, I think, the catalyst. So
yeah, I agree. So they technically dated from 1998 to 2002, but they obviously knew each other longer than that. In 2004, Britney was drunk in Vegas and married her childhood friend, Jason Alexander, but they annulled the marriage a little over 2 days later. And in the memoir, Britney basically says she was blacked out and doesn't remember it all. And she literally just did it because it sounded fun to drunk Britney.
I love that she was just like, listen, I did what normal people do. And so she shouldn't be looked at differently because here's the thing. I feel like when you're a pop star, you're not allowed to do normal things that other humans do, which is make it make sense. Like, she got married to someone and got it annulled because she was drunk in Vegas. Like 100 people probably do this a day in Vegas. Yeah. So what's the difference?
Also, it wasn't even a stranger.
No.
Which makes it even more believable and more like normal. I don't know. I was just like, let her live. They ripped up the papers. Everything's fine. But I mean, you could tell that she's just kind of already on a path where she's not thinking things through.
No.
Let's put it that way. So later in 2004, Britney meets the now infamous Kevin Federline, or K-Fed, as I will be referring to him. Ew. And it sounded like it started out really well. I mean, Kevin was the first person in a long time who made her feel safe. Safe enough that she wanted to take a couple steps back from fame and start a family. And so they get married. She has her 2 sons literally back to back. They're born one
this is something
year apart.
That I needed to talk about because I cannot imagine. I remember after I had Amelia and my gynecologist was like, no, your body needs to heal. He's like, you need to, as soon as you can, you need to go back on birth control. Like, they're very, very much against you getting pregnant that quickly because the amount of time it takes your body to heal from something like that, plus your postpartum anxiety if you have it, postpartum depression if you have that, hormones, like the fact that she got pregnant that quickly, I am not surprised at all that she's continued the trajectory she was on because having babies fucks you up mentally and physically. Like, I was blown away when she said that. I was like, nope, not for me. Not for me.
Literally 1 year apart. So we find out that she had postpartum, although she didn't really know what that was at the time. But at this point, it's like, we know that she is more inclined to depression or anxiety or postpartum or whatever. But that on top of having her sons this close together, I feel like it's literally inevitable because of the hormones, because of the changes. Like, it's just crazy. And she's feeling very unsupported. So this is when the paparazzi really start to get involved in her life in a toxic way because she's trying to pull away and she's trying to start a family. And the paparazzi are like, no, you're still our golden girl and we're not going to let you disappear. So Kevin is starting on his own journey to fame. Gross.
Barf.
He's pulling away from her. She's alone with her 2 kids, suffering from postpartum. She's being chased by paparazzi every time she leaves the house. She's being labeled as an unfit mother. She addresses the famous paparazzi shot of her driving with her son on her lap to escape photographers. And it's basically all just fuel to this fire that she is a bad mom and that K-Fed should have custody.
Yeah.
And like when she addresses it, of course, it is dangerous and horrible. And especially with the paparazzi chasing her, like we know that they cause car accidents. We know that people get hurt, but it's like she didn't know what else to do. And she did the only thing she could think of, which was, I need to get out of here. So this is, again, her not fully thinking of the consequences and just kind of thinking in the moment.
Yeah, and also I think that she has that mama bear protectiveness instinct. So she's going to do what she has to do to protect her kids. And it's disgusting what paparazzi do. Like, her kids are under 2 years old and she's just trying to be a mom and live her life, and they don't let her breathe. So how can you... They wanted this. They wanted this outcome. This is what they wanted to do, and they got what they wanted. And they continue to get what they want, and it's not fair.
I think also in the back of her mind, it's like she's thinking, yeah, you can call me an unfit mother, but there's no way that anyone could ever take my children because I love them so much. Like, that's not even a possibility to her, because she's like, how could anyone ever want to take them away from me? Like, I love them so much. I would never hurt them. I want what's best for them. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even a possibility to her. So in 2006, Britney files for divorce, and they initially have joint custody. And in the memoir, we finally get Britney's side of how their marriage was falling apart and how unsupported she felt and desperate. Whereas in the media at the time, of course, we're listening to the male in the relationship, and Kevin was controlling the narrative, saying he never expected it and he was so supportive of her and worried about her, etc.
Yeah, I hated that.
It's so awful.
And it seemed like, too, like, if I recall correctly, her lawyers were, like, pushing her to go for the divorce, too. And so it wasn't,
I think it was so that she could get ahead of it.
That's what they said, like, you should start the process because but it didn't make her look better. Of course, it made her look worse because, now here she is again, ruining another relationship. Now she's trying to tear the father of her sons away, and, Brittany's a man-eater and whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So as the custody battle is raging on, we get what people start to see as the start of Britney's downfall. And Britney addresses it and says, basically, she was being denied access to her children, whom she loved and felt protective over. And she panicked and she acted out. And she reflects on the infamous head shaving as a kind of fuck you to the media, because her worth was so linked to her beauty and by everyone telling her what to do and who to be and how to dress. And she wanted to take that power away from them. And as she's explaining it, and even at the time, like, obviously you knew that she was struggling.
Yeah.
And as she's describing it, it's like, I get it. Like, yes, she needed help, but I get why that's where her mind went. Like, she needed to be able to control something and take something away from them.
And it's so unfortunate for her because the stigma of mental health is not what it is today. So instead of her getting the help that she needed, instead she was exploited.
Absolutely.
And it's just crazy. Like, this is the pop star. Everyone loves her. And you would think that people would want to help her. And instead, they're kind of egging on the situation and making it worse and trying to ruin somebody, intentionally or not intentionally. Like, you're going to ruin somebody if you allow them to keep on the path that she was on, and no one was trying to help her whatsoever. So she had nobody either, which
she was someone to
makes it... Yeah, makes it so much. It makes it even sadder because she was so alone.
Then, of course, she talks about the attacking of the paparazzi's car with the umbrella. Truly, I would have done worse if my children were being kept from me and I was being harassed by paparazzi at one of the worst, most vulnerable times in my life. But if you watch the New York Times documentary, they interview that paparazzo. And he is gloating and he's fucking proud of himself that he drove her to that point, that he broke her to get that camera shot because he said, that camera shot changed my life. It's fucking disgusting. And the way that to this day he still talks about it and doesn't realize that what he did was wrong. And I know that he was doing his job, and I know that their job in itself was corrupted and fucked up. You saw someone who was struggling, and you didn't care as long as you were the one who got that first
money
shot.
Yep.
It's so Like, how the fuck do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night? I mean, with money, I guess. I guess all that money that you're counting just makes it okay. I don't know. So this brings us up to Britney's conservatorship. And this is what people really wanted her to address in this memoir, and she does. Basically, it was a 13-year conservatorship in which her father, Jamie Spears, another fucking villain in this story, had complete control of her life. It started slowly with control of finances, and then it turned into control over what doctors she could see, what medication she was taking, what jobs she could do, her performance schedules, what she ate, giving her an allowance of her own money, where she could go and with whom, etc., etc. And it literally became control of her life.
Yeah.
So
it's like the Truman Show.
It is.
Her life was literally a real life Truman Show.
So I looked up conservatorship for the legal definition.
Because I really didn't know what it was, to be honest. Like, I didn't know the exact, because I know about guardianship, but I know that this is a different sort.
Mm-hmm. And that's why this is so important, because Britney's conservatorship specifically brought this to people's attention, because I didn't know what this was either. So conservatorship is a legal status in which a court appoints a person to manage the financial and personal affairs of a minor or incapacitated person. A conservator may also serve as a guardian who is responsible for establishing and monitoring the physical care of the individual and managing their living arrangements. So it's very general and very vague and doesn't really have limits as to where this responsibility of the conservator ends. And if it's not being monitored, because I don't think that conservatorships in general are being monitored closely, then it can get really out of control. So Britney and all of us can understand why she needs someone responsible for her care when she has been releasing albums, going on tour, doing 4 years of a Vegas residency, basically working her ass off, earning tons of money to put in her dad's pocket to pay for his lawyers to keep this conservatorship going, and she can't make any of her own decisions. Like, she's not an incapacitated person.
I was just going to say, what does any of this doesn't sound like incapacitated. Incapacitated, you're just mentally not able to make any decisions nor live your life properly. Whereas she's out there being a pop star still and succeeding at it. So
succeeding at it. That's it. Like, she's performing and selling out shows and selling albums, making all these.
She had like a Vegas residency, right? Is that what she said?
For 4 years.
Yeah, but she's incapacitated.
So it's like, if she's still making millions of dollars during these 13 years, something tells me that she shouldn't be controlled like this. And yeah, maybe someone needs to make sure that she's going to her doctor's appointments and taking her medicine, but I'm pretty sure that doesn't have to be done legally in court.
No, and it blew my mind too when she said that he was basically paying himself like $5 million a year, and she was like, "That's more than I was getting." And
she was getting an allowance.
Like, he's just a dick.
And so all this time behind the scenes, Britney has been begging to end the conservatorship. She's been begging for a break from touring, from performing. She's exhausted. She's worn out. Performing is not bringing her the joy that it used to. And she says, okay, if you won't let me take a break, at least let me change some things up. Allow some of my creativity to shine through. Let me make this exciting for me again.
Yeah.
And Jamie's like, no. We're not going to do that. So she makes a statement because she's finally had enough. There's this huge event where she's set to announce her next residency and perform in front of a huge crowd. She makes her entrance, walks down the red carpet, gets into an SUV, and has them drive her away. And people are like, what the fuck? Have you seen the footage of this? It is so awkward. Like, there's hundreds of thousands of people there. And Mario Lopez is hosting, and he announces her. And she walks out, just as Britney does, with a flourish on this, red carpet. And they're getting ready for her to perform. She just keeps on walking, walks right to the street, gets into a car. And everyone is like, wait, where'd she go? It's so awkward. And it's so obviously not what was supposed to happen.
Mm-mm.
So people are like, okay, something's wrong with Britney.
Yeah.
So this is when things take a very dark turn because she showed a little bit of combativeness.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's forcibly taken to a psychiatric facility, which she defines as solitary confinement, where they're pumping her full of lithium and she's only able to see doctors and nurses. This is so fucking sad. Like, she was a functioning adult, more functioning than me, for the record. I can barely keep my eyes open after work and I sit at a desk all day. She's performing, she's killing it. And yes, she was probably depressed. And yes, she had, mental health issues that had to be addressed. But to try and lock her up and throw away the key?
Yeah.
And you thought you were going to get away with it? I mean, he had been getting away with it for years, but this was taking it a step too far.
Yeah, and no one was looking too closely at the situation, so he was able to get away with it.
And not for nothing, all of the people surrounding her in her life, not that I think they would have been able to do much about it, but no one said anything. No one said, like, this is wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it took too long. So in steps the Free Britney movement, because to her fans, after this weird situation at the residency announcement, Britney disappears. No Instagram, no paparazzi shots, no sightings, nothing. And her fans are like, girl, are you good? So they start digging into the conservatorship. And one of the nurses in the treatment facility shows Britney the support online and shows her photos of protests and rallies for Britney. And she is so shocked. She's shocked that what she was feeling behind the scenes is actually being exposed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she didn't even know she could choose her own lawyer.
No,
like
oh my God, when they said that, I was like, that was one of the more fucked up things in knowing that she had no idea.
She believed, her family told her that she couldn't, and she believed everything they told her, because why would they lie to her?
Exactly.
So she thanks her fans for bringing the conservatorship to light and allowing her to get enough of an edge to fight it herself. And in the book, she says, oh my God, I'm going to cry reading it. So fucked up. She says, if you stood up for me when I couldn't stand up for myself, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And that's like, it's just so fucked because, like you said, she was so alone. She was so isolated. And like, she had to have felt like her fans had turned their backs on her when she was getting all this like horrible media coverage and like no one is fighting for her. And then finding out that they're going to legal proceedings, they're going to courtrooms, they're, calling the courts and calling the police to report conservatorship abuse. Like, I just can't even imagine how that must have felt for her when she literally says that she was, having suicidal ideations. Like, she doesn't know how she made it through. And she acknowledges how strong she was because she doesn't think that a lot of other people in her situation would have made it through.
I don't think so either, because she literally had no one. She had absolutely, there was not one person that she could rely on in this situation. And it was years upon years of...
And it was her family. It was her family doing this to her.
It was just such abuse. And what makes it even more fucked up is they wouldn't even have the life that they had if it wasn't for Britney. Like, her fame is what gave them what they have. And to not, instead of being appreciative of it, they just took advantage of it. And it's just full on greed. And
she never would have withheld anything from them. She bought them a house.
I was just going to say,
for their shit all the time.
Asked for anything, I just think that they would have, if they just held their hand out, she would give everything. She wouldn't say 100%. No to them, because I don't think she has a mean bone in her body, because all of the things that are negative in the press that she's done, she was driven to do by the press and everything. So you can't, it's just,
that's the thing, like,
sad.
I don't understand it because it wasn't necessary and she would have given them anything they asked for. And I think it's literally just him being on this fucking power trip. And it starts out with...
He's a man that wants to be in control, which is what you see all the fucking time.
And he started taking a little bit, and then when he realized he could do that and get away with it, he took a little bit more, and he took a little bit more, and he took a little bit more. And then the second that she decided, I'm going to do something that he doesn't like, he said absolutely not.
Yeah.
I'm shutting that shit down.
You know, I do think that she needed medical help for like her mental stability and everything. So she wasn't helpless. Like she did need assistance in some ways, but this was not helping. Obviously, this was just making it 1,000 times worse. And I don't know. Especially like now being a parent, it's like, how can you do that to your child? Like, it's just, there are many, many humans in this world that should have never been parents. And these are two shining examples. It's just, and it's always the fucking child stars. It's always their parents. And I don't get it. It's just crazy. They just get so greedy because of what their child is able to give them. And it's insanity.
It's so sad. And like you said, mental health was not what it was then like it is today. And I mean, we still have a long way to go, of course. But God, if she was just able to talk to someone, if she was just able to get ahead of this before it got so bad, she never would have needed any of this.
Maybe put on rail like medicine instead of lithium. Like give her some Wellbutrin, you know, for her depression and anxiety. Like going to these great lengths for someone that didn't need that. She wasn't in need of that kind of treatment. But
so anyway, her lawyer, who she finally hires of her own volition, first petitions to have Jamie removed from the conservatorship, which is granted, and then he files for the dissolution of the conservatorship altogether. And we know that Britney's speech to the judge, which she chose, that was Britney's choice to make it public. She talks about how hard it was for her and how nervous she was and how trying to encapsulate everything that she felt for 13 years was so hard. And in the memoir, she does give a little snippet of the speech, but she doesn't really do herself justice. Like, if you listen to the whole thing, I mean, she talks about being abused. She talks about one of her biggest issues was that she wanted to start a family with Hassam Asghari, who she was with at the time, but her conservators wouldn't allow her to take out her IUD. I mean, of course, they're not going to let her get pregnant. They won't even let her leave the house. But my biggest questions are for Sam. Like, he's dating her through all of this. And I remember at the time being like, he has to be in on this shit. Because how are they letting her date someone who would be against it? And I remember thinking that, like, while it was happening.
That. Yeah, I wasn't into it like when it was happening, but just kind of hearing the story, it is puzzling because I don't know. I think that if I were someone that was in Britney's position and someone wanted to date me, I don't see it being successful with anybody because she has no autonomy of herself. She can't make her own choices. Like, what are we, teenagers that can only come over at a certain time and I'm sure I have a fucking curfew? Like, that's not a real relationship. And
so, like, obviously he wasn't saying to her, oh, you're being mistreated, or he wasn't saying, oh, you should do something about this, because then they never would have let him around her. But to this day, she still calls him a gift from God and says that he got her through all of those hard times. And I mean, who are we to say if she feels that way about him?
Especially because and being in that point in her life where she, again, didn't have anybody. Of course, this person that's in her life that is a positive presence, I'm sure. I don't blame her for feeling that way. Being in the mental stability that she was in, it's just, I don't judge her for it, because I think if I was in her place, I would feel the exact same way, coming from nothing.
Anyone. Yeah. Yeah. She does also address that she has her freedom and she loves what her fans did for her as far as the Free Britney movement, but that their overprotectedness, another pun intended, is actually going against her newfound freedom. She says, freedom is being able to take a break from Instagram and not have fans call 911 for a wellness check, which is so true. And I get why fans feel responsible, because they did have such a big hand in getting her this freedom. But now she is entitled to have that freedom.
She is.
And it needs to be left up to her. Like, at some point now, she's just her own person with her own autonomy who needs to handle her own shit.
Yep.
She also claims in the memoir that her creativity on Instagram is a feminist awakening. That part lost me a little bit. And you know I love a feminist awakening, but
I know.
I don't see it.
No, I just think that she's especially, so I had never really followed her on Instagram. I never looked at her Instagram. So I didn't know. And so after reading this or listening to it, I went on her Instagram and I texted you and I was like, holy shit. She posts multiple times a day.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is the same video over and over again. And it's just her like naked on a beach. And listen,
you are missing out on years of quality content.
Yeah. And like she can live her life. Like there's just no judgment. But she is so, I feel, she's just stunted in her growth and it shows. Mm-hmm. And it's because of everything that she's been through. Mm-hmm. And so I think that when she doesn't, I don't know if she has like the intelligent capacity to kind of express herself in the ways that she thinks she is.
Right. It's not coming across the way that she thinks it
not.
is.
And
and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I support her expression, but it does seem alarming in light of her past. I mean, the dancing with the knives, the voice change, especially creeps me out a little bit.
A lot of people talk about, and it's just, I think her youth, and this is what happens with child stars, her youth was distorted and she had to grow up in on a quicker timeline than it should have happened. She got pregnant and then was forced to abort her baby. She went through excruciating pain by herself. The man she thought she was going to be with for the rest of her life basically ruined her as a person. Mm-hmm. So it's, and then the dominoes just fell after that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not surprised that she is where she is now, because how can she not be?
Mm-hmm. If you really want to have a fun time, get on TikTok and just start watching the Britney conspiracy theory videos.
Oh, God.
About where they like slow-mo her Instagram videos saying that it's someone else, like with a filter, and it's not actually Britney. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Listen, I can be convinced of anything if I see it long enough. That's the art of the conspiracy.
Yeah.
So in the end, she's so forgiving and so optimistic, and even compliments her dad despite him ruining her fucking life. She talks about finding God again and still struggling every day with the after effects of that control and just trying to figure out what's next for her. And it's sad because she doesn't want to do music anymore. And can you blame her when it turned into such a stifling and controlled production instead of an outlet for her?
I don't even think I actually think that this is the best decision that she's making for herself, because putting herself back in the spotlight after all this, she was just going to get ripped to pieces. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be a positive spin. People are going to they're going to poke holes into it, and it's going to take away from her love for music. And so I think that this is a smart decision, realistically.
Yeah, I agree. She also talks about how she understands Jamie Lynn, which I didn't talk about Jamie Lynn that much because I don't like her, but how hard her childhood was, how she doesn't blame her for not speaking up, for profiting off of Britney's fame, and just for being an overall bitch. As I said, Britney is a stronger woman than I. So basically, final thoughts on the conservatorship specifically. Conservatorships are not always bad, but the amount of restriction and the way that her medicine was controlled, what she could eat and drink, all of that is so unbelievably sad. It's going too far. And it brings out this bigger question of how we can support these child stars. Because we could name off the top of our heads 10 celebrities, at least, who were famous young and had serious struggles with mental health or addiction. So how can we as consumers and as a society keep these people safe? Like, obviously, we're calling more attention now to over-sexualizing young female celebrities. And the Britney conservatorship obviously brought a lot of light and exposure to how these work and can either be great or oppressive. I recently found out that Amanda Bynes was under a conservatorship, but she had a very different experience because from what it sounds like, she had much more supportive parents. They wanted her to be independent. They wanted to work towards a goal where she could eventually take care of herself. And that was obviously the complete opposite with Britney. Yes. And I just think it's really easy for us to forget that celebrities are normal people and not just existing for our consumption.
Yeah.
Especially then and especially now. I mean, it hasn't gotten better. It's just gotten different.
No, I know. And like, that's what sucks is, these celebrities and people just want to live their life how they want to live their life, and they can't,
It's like, just because they're good at something, like just because they're talented. And I don't know. All right, I have a couple more questions for us. So, what's your favorite Britney Spears song of all time?
Toxic.
Ooh, that was easy for you.
Yeah.
That was a quick one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite to like dance jam to is probably Slave for You. Most underrated that I love is probably What You See Is What You Get. But I actually kind of feel like I'm betraying Britney by picking a favorite. So never mind. Sorry, girl.
And if I'm actually being honest, my favorite song is Lucky.
Oh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can't pick a favorite. Okay. What's your favorite Britney era? Here are some examples.
Thank you. I need
The
them.
Baby One More Time / Half of Pop's It Couple era. The Slave for You era, which is where she really started to express her sexuality. The K-Fed era, where she's just wearing Uggs and carrying coffee cups while balancing her children. Post K-Fed, she dabbles in partying. Current timeline, we can call that her Instagram era.
Probably the Slave for You era. Because that was also like, Oops, I Did It Again, right? Or is that
that was around that same time, yes. Because these were all like her first 3-4 albums.
Yeah.
Mine was
the earlier,
In the Zone.
Yeah, definitely, the earlier stuff for her, for me, is...
Mine was In the Zone, because it was a new tone for her. So this is like Toxic, Me Against the Music, where she did with Madonna. She started getting into more like adult sounding music, and it was more experimental and less like girly pop sound. So I feel like this is where she could have really like just transcended. And instead it's when things started going
downhill. Yeah.
Was there anything that really shocked you or you weren't expecting that you learned about in the memoir?
The abortion, because I had no idea. I had no idea that she had gotten pregnant by him, and I also didn't know the extent of the publicity with their relationship, mainly because I was so young when it happened, so why the fuck would I realize that? And I wasn't a huge Britney fan as I got older, whereas, you continued to be a fan of her, so you would understand that part of her life, whereas when I heard all that, I was like, I had no idea. Like, I had no idea. I had and it's just, I think that you eat up the media as you get older, and seeing her having her breakdowns, you just immediately now have this stigma of who she is, and I have this opinion because of what is being presented to me. So reading it and getting her side of the story during those times was eye-opening for me, just because she's a human being, and it sucks what happened to her. And now I know that she didn't have the mental capacity to deal with what she was dealing with throughout her entire life.
And to be honest, most of us wouldn't. It wasn't a normal situation. And that was my next question. Did your perception of Britney change after reading this book?
It did.
And I knew that we would have very different experiences because you didn't know as much about her story. And for me, I want to say no, because like from what we see online, she has forgiven her family. She makes it clear that she won't forget, but she does forgive them. And that's kind of the vibe I got from the memoir. Like, she does understand, but she's not going to forget what they did to her.
No, and I think that she's such a selfless human being, so I'm not surprised that she's not letting them off the hook, because I don't want to say that, but that she is setting boundaries for herself, acknowledging what they did. It wasn't okay, but you did what you did because that's the human that you are, but I no longer want anything to do with you. And I think that that's strong of her to be able to set boundaries, because I think that more than anything, she wanted a family like Justin had, it sounds like. And she didn't have that.
And it took her 40 years to set those boundaries.
Listen, I'm going to be 35, and there's boundaries that I should be setting that I have not set. So she's doing better than me.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all skipping on some of those boundaries?
Yeah.
Who do you think let Britney down the most?
Everyone.
That's the thing. There's too many to choose from.
Everyone.
It's like, obviously, her family, her mom, her sister, her dad, her past relationships, the media, the industry, the legal system.
The only
Like,
person
no
that didn't let
one-
her down was her fans.
Exactly.
That's the only people that were in her corner.
Mm-hmm. And her fans who stuck by as her fans, who didn't, you know, forget about her when her downfall happened.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are you ready to get to the ratings?
Sure.
I know it's weird to rate memoirs, but we're going to do it anyway. So our rating scale is Rolling Stone covers, of which Britney was on the cover 8 times.
Wow, good for her.
I know, killing it.
That's amazing.
Anyway, how many Rolling Stone covers are you giving this memoir?
4 Rolling Stone covers. I don't love rating memoirs, like you said, because who am I to rate someone's life story? That's not really fair of me. But I did feel like it was just a very immature, childish tone to the book, which, again, I'm not surprised, and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, because when I compare it to, like, Jeanette McCurdy's that we did last year.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, it's so different, whereas I feel like Jeanette's was more depressing. Britney's was depressing, don't get me wrong, but she had such a positive spin on everything, whereas Jeanette's was like, oh, we're gonna wallow with you and you're gonna make me sad, whereas Britney was trying constantly to say, like, listen, this really shitty thing happened to me, but now I'm better, you know? So it's just 2 different spectrums.
And it wasn't even 2 different times, because like Jeanette is still processing what happened, and so is Britney. It's literally just different tones.
It's just what it is. So, you know, I'm happy that I read it, because now I'm like a fan of memoirs, and now I want to like read more memoirs.
Yeah.
Or like,
yeah, I agree.
Actually, I think I would like to listen to them. I think that memoirs are going to be like an audio thing for me, because I really did like it. So yeah.
Yeah, and Michelle Williams' voice is just so soothing.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, I was like, is this a memoir or random anecdotes that Britney should be telling her therapist? But when you think about the stories like of her walking into the screen door and, you know, things like that, these moments, not only do they provide some levity, but also the fact that she remembers her embarrassment of like this one moment so vividly shows that she is in fact a normal person, even with all the attention and fame she was starting to get. She really does address all the bullet point moments, the denim outfit, the head shaving, the umbrella, the conservatorship. I'm not going to lie, I wanted a little more anger. I wanted a little more accountability for the media, at least. Maybe not for her family, because that's her choice, but for the media at least, instead of just pinning a lot of it on Justin, because I do think that a lot of his behavior was a product of the media and of society.
Yeah.
All that being said, I am also giving it 4 Rolling Stone covers. It gave what a memoir should give, which is her explanation, her feelings, and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I was just hoping for more bombshells. So that's on me.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from, because I think that especially after like Jeanette McCurdy's being my first memoir I ever read, Britney's was so like pale in comparison.
Different.
Like it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
I agree with that.
I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't necessarily this, and I didn't hate it, like I said, because it's still nice to hear her side of everything. But I agree. I was expecting a little bit more like, fuck you.
So in light of that, if anyone is looking for additional reading and viewing, and maybe a little more of that fuck you and people who aren't afraid to say it, we talked on our bonus episode about the Love to See It episode. It's titled Hot Sexy Virgins, about Justin and Britney, which talks a lot about sexism and how it affected Britney's image. There's also Toxic, the Britney Spears story, which is a podcast. It talks a lot about the Free Britney movement, and they are actually the ones who kicked off the Free Britney hashtags, signs, all of that. And then I mentioned it a couple times, the New York Times documentary Framing Britney Spears, which shows the part that the media really played in all of this. So
I do plan on watching like the documentaries and stuff, because I've never seen any of them. So since listening to this, I'm going to be more like involved in it. I want to watch more.
And it'll probably even be different watching it after hearing from her point of view too.
I agree.
All right, anything else you want to add?
No, I'm just glad that she's free.
Me too. Everyone
She can live her little weird life if she wants, because you know what? She's fucking free. That's all that
I
matters.
saw someone saying, like, why does this girl not have an OnlyFans? Like, all she wants to do is be naked, and people would be paying good money for that.
But she doesn't want that. Like, she just wants to, like, be herself. So it's like, I get it. She just wants to be free. And she is.
And she is. Wow, I just always want something more, apparently. Anyway, that's all we have for you today. If you like what you heard, please make sure to follow, subscribe, and rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. If you have any book recommendations or questions for us, you can email us at fullybookedcalfpod@gmail.com. Also, be sure to follow us on TikTok and Instagram at fullybookedcalfpod to see our upcoming reads. Thanks for checking us out, and remember,
if you need us, we're fully booked. Bye!
Bye.